In tonight's class, we are going to be continuing from where we stopped last time. And today, like I mentioned in our class, we are going to be working with CMS content. CMS content. So, please, a minute, please. Yeah. So, when when I mention CMS content, CMS actually stands for Content Management System. So a CMS helps you to manage dynamic content on your website. So you can program it automatically, and then you don't have to always come back to input your elements manually. Once you have been able to input the data, then it can be automatically generated on your website. So you can use your CMS content in virtually any section of your website, but most importantly, people use it for, like, say, maybe you want to showcase your works, or you want to showcase maybe pictures, elements that you don't have to always come back there to be typing them all the time, or you're operating a blog website, and then you you just, all you need to do is to create a structure for your blog page, and then input the data in the CMS database. And once the data has been inputted, it can be automatically generated on the website, on that particular page. So in that way, you don't always have to create a new blog post, create one for today, and then when you are creating another one tomorrow, you have to start from scratch again. No, the CMS helps you to manage your content dynamically and in an easy way. So it's easy for you to manage, and it saves you a lot of time, stress, and then energy. Yeah. So we are going to be doing something similar for our portfolio website for Benjamin Franklin. So I noticed, well, it doesn't matter anyway. Our visual designer is a guy, a Benjamin, but then the picture we are using is that of a lady. So I hope you don't mind such discrepancy. So let's just continue with that. And so today we are going to be adding a new section for latest work. And we're going to be using CMS to create this content. So let's go ahead and start to do that right away. So in our designer, on the tab on the left, this is the page structure. So we have navbar, hero, brand, skill, and then we are now going to be adding a new section. So let's go ahead by adding a div block and calling it works section. And inside of it, we're going to be adding another div. We're going to be calling it works container. Remember the structure we have been following. Here we use skill container. So here we are using works container. So inside of this works container is where we are going to be having each of these elements. So remember what I talked about, our box model. So this is a box, this is another box, and this is another box. So we are going to be having 3 horizontal boxes on each row, and then when you are adding a new element inside your CMS database, it automatically gets added and then moved to another row, on and on like that. So it's easy for you to manage. You don't have to be creating all of these elements manually. All you need to do is to create the structure, and then your project, the elements is going to be dynamically added onto the page. Yeah. So we have a div container that is going to be holding the image and then the title and the kind of work you did. So for this one, you have the project title and the type of work that was done was UI and art direction. So I'm sorry, I think I should have done this earlier. I will have to export the images. So I'll call this project one. Call this export to. And 06. Yeah, nice. So let's come over here and export and import our the assets. Project 6, project 1 to 6. So they are going to be imported. And once we have done that, let's look at the structure of our page again and look at the padding and the maybe margin that we are using. We are using 70 for the padding. So over here, we're going to add margin of 70. Yeah. So let's create the structure. Let me just ensure that this is here. Inside of this, we're going to have a div and we're going to call it project. This is kind of a discrepancy. Let me just call it work. So this is going to hold, for instance, work 1, work 2, work 3, work 4. So I'm going to duplicate it. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6. You can see that they are stacked on top of each other. So remember how we have been going about this. We want them to be horizontal, and we just come over here, change the display, and set it to space between. So you can see that all of the 6 elements are on the same row, but we don't want that to happen. We are going to be doing that later with our CMS. So all we are doing now is that we are creating the basic structure in which the CMS element is going to be operating. So inside of this work, let's add a div and call it work image. So this is going to hold the image for the work. You can see. And what else do we have? We have description, work description. So let's add another div and call this one work description. So inside the work description, we have 2 text elements. We have the title and the type of work that was done. And inside the work image, All we are going to do is to add our image element, and then no, we are not going to do it this way. All we need to do is okay, for this I will add an heading. I will call it heading 4. Okay, and then I'm also going to add a text block. Let me see. So there isn't any padding applied to this. So let me delete all of this and then duplicate this again. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. So now we are getting to the crux of the matter. And now the next thing to do to create our CMS is this. Now watch out. Go to the portion where you are going to add your element, and here you are going to see CMS. Let me zoom in so that you can see. You are going to see CMS collection list. Now let me zoom out. You are going to be adding that CMS collection list inside of the work container, directly inside work container. So come over here and click on CMS. Now it has been added. Now this CMS collection list has been pre-created by WebFlow. So inside of it, there are layers of elements. You can have, here you have your collection list, you have empty state. What happens if there is no collection, there is no content inside the collection list? Then this empty state is going to show up. But this is what we want to deal with now, the collection list. So when you expand it, you now have the collection item. So the first thing I'm going to do is to change the name, work list. So I change the name to work list wrapper. Then I change this name, the class name, to work list. And I change this to work items. Now inside of this work item, I will move all of this structure that I have created. Okay, so you can see that it's giving me an error. Look at the error over here. It says I should connect this connection list to a collection before adding element. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, how do I create a collection list database? Come over to this left bar, and here you are going to see this icon. When you hover on it, it shows CMS. Let's click on it. So here you have your CMS collections. And at the top here, you have an icon that asks you to create your new collection. So let's click on it. Now, it has brought us to a new page entirely. So what name are we giving this collection list? Now here, it's going to be called our work. So we are going to call it work. Now, that's the title. And now, the next thing we are going to do after we have done that is to add the collection fields. Now, for this one, we have just three fields. We have the image field, we have the title of the work, and then we have the description, the type of work done, the job, let me say, the job title, UI, and art direction, title of project, and responsibility. Okay, we'll call this one responsibility. So the first thing we do, there are two basic info that are automatically added for you that you can't change. So we just leave those fields, and then let us add our own field. Here you have several options that you can add. So the first one we have here is image. So let's click on image, and then we call it uh, so let's select, then we call it work what? Work image. Now you have some settings here that you can do. Maybe you want the size of the image to have a minimum size and a maximum size. And possibly you want that field to be required. You can click on it, but we are going to leave all of these settings as it is. Let's save it. Then the next field we have is what? The project title. Let's come over here and add a new field, and that is going to be what? Is going to be text. So we are going to is a plain text. Let's select this, call it work title. So here you have some other settings also. I'm going to leave what we have there. And the last field we are creating is this, which is a responsibility. It's also a plain text. So let's call it responsibility. And I'm going to leave it as it is. So now that we have these three basic descriptions, let's go ahead and save our new collection. I'm going to click on create collection. So it's going to create that database for us. Now you can go ahead and do some like it's going to ask if you want WebFlow to create some sample items for you, but we don't need that. So we are going to create our own from scratch. So click on new work. Now, so let's go back and do something else. Instead of creating the work title, we are going to use the default name for it. So let's go back and do that. So if I click on my work item here, I can easily go to the settings. So I'm going to remove the work title here and delete it. So I'm going to change this one to what? Work title, and save it. So let me save it, and then let's add our new work. So the first project is anyway, this doesn't have a particular description. Let's just call it blood orange. That's the work title. Then the image. So I think this is project 01. Yeah, I've uploaded it. And then what's the responsibility? UI art direction. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to create. And then you have one. You have added an element, a collection list, a list to the item. You can see that it has not been published yet. So let's create another one. I'll call this one abstract. So I'm just going to go ahead and do all of this quickly. Just watch UI. So doesn't have a particular name. I'm just going to project D. So I'll change this to Illustrator. I'm doing this. These are all dummy contents to explain to us. Uh, just typing whatever comes to my head. So we have our 6 projects created and ready for publishing. So let's go back now. Just come over to pages here, and then you go back to the home. Now we can now move. Okay. Oh, sorry. So let me connect our collection list to a new um, element, to a new source, to a new collection item. So you can see that when I'll come over here, select the work list wrapper, and click this cog. Then where am I sourcing from? I'm going to change it to work. So because I created work, it has shown up here and I can select it. Now, it's asking me for layout. How many items do I want to show per row? I want it to be 3 columns. So you can see. So I can immediately change that here. And if you click on show all settings, it will bring you here and you can do some other settings there. You can add pagination so that you can show like maybe page 1 of 2, page 1 of 3, page 1 of 4, and you can also limit items. So now let's go ahead and add our work here. So we can now move all of these elements over here. So you can already see that it has arranged the elements for me and created 3 columns. So let's see what happens if I change it to say 4 columns. You can see if I say 5, I mean this is 6. So if I just allow it to be automatic and say okay, this is full width, then it's going to be 1, 2, 3. But we want it to be 3 elements. So let's leave it at that. Now let's change the display for this work item to flex. Um, nice. Coming. This is kind of unexpected. Mhm. So what is happening here? Okay. So what I just did there is that you are only going to be adding one container and not 6 containers like I did initially. You are going to be adding just one container, and when you change, once you link this container to the source item, which is from your CMS list, all of this will change automatically. So let's go ahead and try to do that. So I will click on this image now, and then I will ask it to get image from CMS item that is called works. So it's now going to ask for the field that I'm going to be selecting from. So the field that matches this particular element is image, and it is this one. So I'm going to click on it. Can you see? Can you see how everything just changed immediately? So that is what happens. And then let me go ahead and do the same for heading. So just watch. If you missed the last one, I'll select field. And then what are we looking for? The work title. Can you see how everything change? Now if you also miss that, let me go ahead and do the same for this the responsibility part. Select field responsibility, everything change automatically. So that means you don't have to spend a lot of energy having to create each of these elements one by one. Once you have created a structure, just connect it to your CMS item, I mean the CMS list, and the elements will be populated automatically. So that saves you a lot of time, saves you a lot of energy, and then you can spend the time doing something more profitable. So this is like working smart and not working hard. Do you have any question thus far? Any question? Hello?
Hello, sir. I'm with you, sir.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So let me quickly do some spacing to what we have here. Let me do some spacing. Let me do some spacing. Let me see if this is going to work. This is color. It's not going to work. Okay, then this is like the default stuff. I'm going to remove it. I'm just trying to do some minor adjustments to the styling, and we can just add this. Yes. So the image is full width now, and we need some what do I call it now? Like margin in between the elements. So for this work, I'm going to let me see. So we have like 25. Let's make it a gap. I mean a row of 24. That's it. And then basically, um, um, let me make sure this is going to work. Going to work. I want to create some sort of margin in between the elements, and I don't want to apply it to this, but then I think I don't have a choice. So what I will do is let me give this 40 and give this 40. So I'm going to centralize it. Yeah, I think that's it. So there you go. That is how to create a CMS item list. So I think we need to give it an heading. So let's go back and go back to work here. I'm going to add a div, call it headline. Inside of the headline, I'm going to add a heading. Let's make it H2. So let's change that up. Let's change the structure to vertical, and then let's give it row of 40. Yes, please. So, and let me, for this, I'm going to centralize it. Yes. So there you go. Now I'm going to do something to the spacer. I'm going to increase it to 200 so that there can be proper spacing between the elements. And the sort of, I'm going to change the background color for this place. For this spacer, I'm going to do something so that I can be able to apply the same color to the background. I will come to this style selector and I will add a combo class. Zero. So with that, if I change the background color, it's not going to affect the other spacer elements. So let's see, we can see. So all of the other spacer are not affected. So this I want to do some adjustments to my design, and I want this text to be a bit bigger. I will call it I'll give it 72. I don't know why it's breaking. Try to do it, and I'm going to increase this to 30, 32. Let me see, and make this 24, and then change the color a bit. Now, I'm going to do something that we have not done before. So what if in this text, you want to style a particular section of this text without affecting the other elements? All you need to do is to wrap it. So by wrapping, you are going to highlight the text, and then it's going to bring up a dialog, and you select this option called wrap with span. So with this, if I style this element, it's not going to affect the other elements. So I'm going to style it by changing the color to this, and I want to make it say medium. I would also like to change the font. I'd like to change the font to something else. So, and the paragraph also to PT serif. I will do the same. I'll come here. Let me increase this to 32. And change this to this. Yeah. So basically, now, if you notice, okay, hold on. So I want to show you something now before we quickly go ahead. If you notice that the design is too far apart, that is because the screen I'm using is having a viewport width of 1920. So what happens if I change? So that means that I am viewing on a large screen. But for most devices, for desktop settings, what you are really going to be using is going to be like around 1439. If I set it, this is how it's going to display on a desktop. I mean on a laptop size of, say, that has maybe 14 or 13 inches as a screen size, and then we have 15, I think, uh, 1520 or so. So now it doesn't really look good when you are viewing your website on a very large screen, and then the spacing becomes unnecessarily large. So what we can do to that is to set a maximum width for um, for our designs. So let's set a maximum width for the nav bar section. Here you come over here, let's give it 1440. Okay, let's leave that for now. I don't want to take too much of our time. We'll come back to that later in when we are doing a sort of review, and then I can entertain some questions. So Now that we have achieved how to create a CMS, one of the other things that we're going to do tonight is to play around with some interactions in WebFlow. So this is basically one of the last tricks that we have not really looked at, and we are going to do that tonight. So we are going to do some interactions. Let me copy this and paste. And then, so we are going to be creating a section for testimonials, but I'm not going to be following this particular design. I'm going to be using a separate design entirely. Although I'm going to be like, it's still going to be testimonial, but not following this structure, so that I can demonstrate and show to us how to do some interactions in WebFlow. So now, under my body, I'm going to add another section and call it testimonials section. So inside the testimonial section, I'm going to call this um, okay, I'm looking for div. I'm going to call this testimonials container. So inside the testimonial containers, we are going to have two sections. A section that holds the image, and then a section that holds the text. Now let's go ahead and do that. I want to add a div inside of it. I'll call this testimonials txt, and let me just duplicate this. I'll duplicate this and then rename. Then I'll change this to image img. Now, for this, I'm going to set the text. Let me set the text to a height of 100 VH. So VH stands for viewport height. So what that is going to do is that it's going to take up the full height of whatever device you are viewing that page in. So the text is what we have here. And then for the testimonial, I'm going to give this I'm also going to give it 100 viewport height. We can adjust it as we go. So let me change this to let me change this to display and vertical. Actually, it should be horizontal. So you have here and you have here. I'll make this so I'll make this 50% of the parent width, and also make this 50%. Now you cannot see what I'm doing because there isn't any content inside of it. So let's go ahead. Inside of our testimonial, I'm going to add an image. So I've uploaded these pictures. I'm going to add this. done that. Oh, yes, that was the network. So it should be this. Yes. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to give this um, and change it to cover. Then let me duplicate. I'll change the image place to this and this. I'll replace it with this. Yes, looks like the network is having some difficult time tonight. Okay, let me not use that to waste our time. Find something to do to it. Now, inside the testimonial text, what I want to do is I'm just going to add a div that will hold the text, and I will call it um, testimonial. So inside of that, I'm going to add uh, a heading, make it H5. I'm going to call it, oh, this is, yes. I actually do not need an heading here. So I'm going to remove it. I'll change it to just a text block. A text block, and then the testimony. So let me just type in some random text. Don't mind whatever I'm typing. So then let me add another text block. Just call this area. Yeah. So I'll call this Maria and change this also. So So let me change this color. Basically, I want to use this color. So, or this. Yes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to duplicate this, change it to vertical. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So this is what I'm actually duplicating. So let me, I'll remove 100 VH from this. So this ones will be the one to carry the height. Yeah. So each of these exactly, this is what I want. So just watch what I am trying to achieve. Let me do some, uh, let me give this kind of a background color. So let's find our, and then, yes, let's give it some padding and make this centrally aligned. And then let's give it a row of, say, gap of 20. Yeah. So I feel I should increase the size for this. Yes. So now what I want to do is that when this gets to the top, it's going to remain sticky, and as the testimonies change, so let me just change it to again. I'm going to change it. Here is another testimony, testimonial from a very satisfied client or child. Nice. So let me also change this. Yeah, what should we call him? Ahmed. What I want to achieve with interaction is that when it gets to the top, I want this um, text as it's moving up, as the text is changing, the image, this bar, the left, I mean the right section will remain sticky also, but then the image will be changing as the text here is moving. So that is what I want to achieve. So how do we go about doing that? Let's see what we can do. Um, so the first thing we are going to do is that we're going to be playing around with the positioning of our elements. Most of, most of the time now we have been working around layout, typography, and size. So this time around, we're going to be working with positioning. So with positioning, I demonstrated this in, I think, our very first class or second class, I can't recall. So with this positioning, I will be setting the parent container to relative. So once I set the parent container to relative, I can play around with the children elements inside of it. So I'm going to set this to absolute. So all of the elements here, because they have the same class name, they are now in absolute. And I'm going to set it to center. So the absolute settings you can adjust here, maybe the top left, the top right, etc. So I'm making it center. So what happens? So I'm going to do it in such a way that this text is going to first show that of Maria, and then when it changes to Jane, the picture of Jane is going to show, and when it changes to Ahmed, that of Ahmed is also going to show. So let's go around how to do that now. So um, um, this is our testimonial. I'm going to set testimonial container also to relative. So this is going to take some practice and getting used to. And I'm going to change testimonials text to sticky, position sticky. And I'm going to set it to 0% top. That doesn't seem to be working. So let me do that. Um, okay, yeah. Testimonials. Just go along with me. Let me change this one. I will set this. Then let me try around with testimonial image. It's already relative. Then I'm going to set uh, yeah, okay, this is going to be sticky. This has to be in sticky, 0%. Nice. Yeah. Okay. Now we got it. Now we got it. we've achieved the first step. So the first step is that the image on the right is going to be sticky, and then the text will be changing, and while the text is changing, the images will also be doing what? Will be changing accordingly. So let me go back again and do that. I'm going to do all the research on what I've done so that you can understand very well. I'm just going to do a reset of all the settings that I've done concerning the positioning. Then I will explain from scratch again so that you can get it. Now, let me explain what we are trying to achieve here. What we are trying to achieve with the interaction is that when this container reaches the, like, when this shows up, I want the image on the right to be sticky, and then I want the text to be changing. So once the text is changing, the image will not move. Rather, the image will be changing automatically to reflect that, okay, the next testimonial is Jane, and then the picture of Jane is going to show up. Now the next testimonial is Ahmed, and the picture of Ahmed is going to show up. So let us go ahead and do that. And to achieve that, the first thing we are going to do before we actually do the interaction is to play around with the positioning of our elements. So on the testimonial container, I'm going to set the testimonial container to position relative. That's the first thing. Now, the the children element, I'm going to set testimonials image, the one which I want to be sticky. I will set it to position sticky. Now, to ensure that this is sticky, I'm going to play around with the positioning of the contents inside of it. I will set them to what? Absolute. So when I set them to absolute, they are stacked on top of each other. Oh, I forgot to adjust something with our sticky positioning. So once you set it to position sticky, you are going to adjust the positioning. Where do you want it to stick to? Do you want it to stick to the top of the screen, or maybe at the middle, or you want it to stick? You just adjust these settings. So for me, I want it to stick to the top of the screen, and I'm going to set it to 0%. So you can see, once you get to the top of the screen, it stays there until the element here has moved, and then the other parts of the content will continue to show. So now that we have achieved the first step, let's go ahead now and play around with the interaction. So to go about doing the interaction, you come to the top right corner, and then you select this, what do they call it? This thunder icon. It is called interactions, or you can simply press H on your keyboard to take you there. Now, we have two options. I explained this in one of our classes. You can either do element trigger, or you can do page trigger. So what we want to do with the interaction is elements. We want the interaction to be triggered when an element is affected, or when something happens to an element. So, and that element is the testimonials. So for the testimonials, Once this testimonial shows up on the screen, I want the image of Maria to be here. And once Jane shows up, I want the image of Jane to be here. And when Ahmed shows up, I want the image of Ahmed to be here. So that is what I want to achieve. So we are going to be doing that by triggering a particular this testimonial element. So to do that, I will try and give, because the testimonials all have the same class name, to avoid um, confusion, I'm going to give each of these elements a combo class. So I will call this one Maria. I'll call this one Jane. And I will call this Ahmed. So now, let's click on testimonial, that is for Maria, and go to interactions. And I'm going to click on this plus element to select element trigger. So you have options here. What do you want to happen? I want the interaction to be triggered when I scroll into view. So once this particular section of the website comes up, that is when the interaction should start to happen. So I will click on scroll into view. So you have several options here. Maybe when you click on an element, or you hover, or your mouse moves, but this is what we are working with tonight. So I will click on scroll into view. So it says when scrolled into view, which action do you want to perform? I will click on select an action, and then I say I want an animation to start. Now, I don't need an offset for this case. So I'm just going to go to this plus button and click on timed animations. So what do I want to do? This is Maria Queen. So that when it comes in, this is what I want to happen. Now, once I've created that, I will now go to the element that I want to be affected by that trigger, which is image 2. Then I will come here and click on actions. What do I want to happen? I want the opacity. So what we are going to be playing around with is the opacity of the element. I want the opacity to be set at 100%. Now, you can see that nothing is happening because the other elements are stacked on top of what do I call it now? On top of each other. And I want this trigger to affect the particular element I have selected and not the class. So I want it to be set at 100%, but then at the same time, I want the other elements to be hidden. So I will come to this image, which is for Jane, and I will select here, and I will say the opacity should be set to 0%. I will change this to the selected element, and I want this to be set as the initial state of that element. I will click on it, and also I will come to Ahmed image and also do the same thing. I want the opacity to be set to 0% initially, 0% as the initial state, and I will change it to the element. Now you can see that we have Maria's image alone showing on the screen. So let's do some easing. I will set it to ease. So I'll just leave it at that. And the duration, I will leave it at 0.5%. And then I will save it. Now, the first part, how is this showing up? So if you come here, yeah, okay, it's working. So this is when you scroll into view. Now, when you are scrolling out, that is when this text is moving up and the next set of text is showing, I want this image to change. So when I'm scrolling out of view now, I will come here and say when scroll out of view, I'll select to start another animation. Ensure that testimonial one is selected. So I will come here and click on. So now I will change the offset settings here. What the offset means is that it's going to give a sort of waiting time, like it's going to give a sort of spacing in between the interaction time. So I want it to happen at, say, um, when the element has moved to, like, this is 50%, and when it has moved to, like, say 40%, or like, let me give you 40%, and then we can adjust it. That is when I want the next set of interaction to happen. And then I will say Maria out. So I know this might look a bit complex to you, but then you can always ask questions. So I will select image 2 and click on opacity. Now, as I am scrolling out of view, I want Maria image to be set at 0%, and I want it to affect the selected element only. I will set this linear the movement to ease. Also, now that that is done for testimonial 1, I will come to testimonial 2 and basically follow the same process with some little differences. So when I scroll into view, now remember that in testimonial 1 we set an offset of 40%. So we don't want any delay in between it. So I'm also going to set this one to 40%, so that once that one is fading out, this one is going to be coming up. I'll set it at 40% and then create my own in a new that I'll call this one Jane in now. Now I will come to image 2 and select action. I want opacity to be set at 100%, and I will change it to the selected element. Set this to ease, and I will save. Then when I'm scrolling out of view, I will also create the same animation and also set it at 40%, and say gain out. I will come and select image 2 and say opacity to be at 0%, and change the affected element to selected class. So we have that. Now the last one is going to be what? Testimonial 3, which is for Ahmed. Now we're also going to do the same thing. Scroll into view, select, start an animation, and this is going to be set at 40% also. And I will create this Ahmed in, and I will come and select this image and create an interaction for it, say 100%, and I'm going to make it to affect the selected element. Set the ease to linear, to ease, and then save it. And when I'm scrolling out of view, starting an animation, but this time around, because this is the last element in the testimonial, I will not set an offset for it. I will not set an offset for it. I will just leave it as it is and create an animation and say um, Hamid out. And then I'll just save it as it is. I will not do any custom settings to it. It's still going to be at 100% because it's the last element in the list. So there is no point fading the opacity. So I'm going to save it and I will demonstrate it to us now. So let me quickly add a spacer so that we can have kind of a border at the bottom. So I will come here. Let's see what is going to happen. Let's see if our interaction is going to work. So here you have Maria. Wow. Can you see that? Now it is changing, but it is happening so fast, even before this one is able to show up. So we are going to adjust that through the offset. So let's go here and adjust the offset for this to say let's set it to 70%. Actually, I don't know what that is going to do to it. Okay, we have to set it to a lower figure, say 10%. And let's go ahead. Like, I don't understand. Okay. All right. So I know what I'm going to do. Um, I'm going to adjust the settings for the height. I'm going to adjust the settings for the height of this element. So let me adjust it by changing it to uh, let me say um, 60. And let's see what is going to happen now. So this one is still working. All right. So I'm trying to do some work around with the height of the element and the offset. So that is what is kind of playing a trick on us. Adjust this also. 70, 30. And so this is just how we'll do some work around and until we're able to achieve um, Now I don't know why that is not changing. Sometimes it can really be difficult to achieve. But let's publish the website and view the live website and see if we're going to get something meaningful. So let's watch and see. Yes. Okay. All right. So let's do some work around to this testimonial container. So I'm going to give it um, say a padding of 220. Now let's see what happens. So this looks like it's changing too fast. I think I understand some of the things that is happening here. So let me change. I did some settings here and I'm going to adjust them. Yes, now let's test it and see. This is I think this is some aspect is working fine, and let's look at the published website again. All right. So I don't want this to take too much of our time, but then I believe at least we've done some demonstrations to show what you can achieve with WebFlow interactions. So as a bonus, let me just go ahead and do another one with the start a project button. So I'll just come over here and let's simply add an interaction to it, a mouse over, or let me say, okay, let's do a mouse over and say what we want to happen to it. You can click on start animation, mouse over effect on the same element. So we are also performing the action on the same element. So what we want to do is that we want to scale it. We want the size to increase to say, okay, wait, I want to change target, CTA button. Yes. So I want this to increase a bit. and let me add an easing to it, and then I will save. On over out, add an action, scale. I want this to be is also, and save. So let's see if our interaction is going to happen. Can you see? Now over out. Oh, this is what is actually causing the problem. It's supposed to be on the CTA button. So let's go ahead and do that. Can you see now? So when you hover on it, it expands, it scales it up, and then when you remove it, it scales it down. So you can play around with some of the interactions that we have here. And so in our next class, I'm going to take some time to work on this, and then I will explain to us what actually went wrong and why we could not do that. I don't want to spend too much time on this again tonight. So, but at least we have been able to achieve some of the things that we wanted to do. In that, on the live website, you can see that this is so. In our next class, I'm going to be giving us a better explanation on the interactions that we have achieved over there. But at least we have been able to establish, we have been able to showcase how we can use interactions in WebFlow. So I demonstrated with the start a project button on the live website. You can see if I reload the web page, okay, I did not publish it. All right, let's reload. So you can see now. So if you have been seeing this interaction on a particular website, that was how it was done. So there is no magic to it. Now, what we were able to achieve is that the images were changing when we were scrolling in, but then there was no interaction when we were scrolling out. So in our next class, we are going to try and look at what actually went wrong. So um, there is still one more thing we are supposed to do, which is creating a new page in our design. I will just explain to us how to go about that, but then we'll not do so much on it tonight. So when you come to the pages section here, you can basically click here to create a new page. So someone asked me a question regarding that this afternoon, and this is how you can just go about adding a new page, and then you click here and say, okay, I want this page to be on about. So once you create it, let's go over here and just bring some elements. So later we can, let me bring this, and I copied it, and then I'll come over here and select about and just paste. So let me select the body and paste, and go back here and select home. So I want to do it in such a way that when I click on this link, it's going to take me to the about page. So I will come to the about page and click on this settings icon to copy the link of the website. So this is it. I will click here to copy it, and then I will come back to home and select about and come here, element settings, and say, okay, when I click on this link, I want it to take me to this particular page. I don't want it to open a default, I want it to open there. So I'm going to just click on publish, and then we can quickly demonstrate that. So in our next class, we are going to expand on that. So if I go back to my live website and I reload, and then I click on this, it's going to take me to the about page. Now this is it. Can you see? Let me take this away from full screen so that you can see. So I'll click on this. It's going to take me back here. Okay. So we can see that it's working now. Click on about. It's going to bring me to this page. So if you come to the designing workflow, you can see that your about page is also what is showing on the live website when I click on this. So you can see. Yeah. So basically that is how you can go about doing that. Okay. So this will be all for our class tonight. And I want to really appreciate everyone for hanging around up to this time. Today's class is a bit, is quite long,